Welcome, my dear dreamers. Welcome back to the realm of shadows and whispers. Tonight, we gather for a special occasion, a feast of fright, a banquet of bone-chilling tales to help you endure the awkward silences, the overcooked turkey, and those invasive questions from your distant relatives. Yes, this is Thanksgiving, Mr. Sandman style. But before we begin, let me share a little secret. The stories you're about to hear are not entirely imagined. They're drawn from urban legends, old whispers told around campfires, and yes, fragments of truth that have been passed down through the years. How much is real? Well, that's for you to decide. Some say all legends have a kernel of truth buried deep within, don't they? So, dreamers, pull your chairs closer. Let the shadows settle in and prepare yourselves for 3 short tales that will send shivers down your spine faster than Aunt Carol's green bean casserole. Tonight's menu includes The Hitchhiker's Feast, The Empty Chair, and The Forgotten Basement. Each story more haunting than the last, each rooted in the eerie possibility that they just might be true. And for those of you who are new here, welcome to the world of Mr. Sandman, where bedtime stories are anything but comforting. Subscribe to join our dreamscape, where every tale is darker than the last. Now, dreamers, let us begin. The first tale awaits. But I must warn you, be careful who you invite to dinner. The Hitchhiker's Feast, Thanksgiving, 1978. A bitter chill swept through the Pennsylvania countryside, turning the narrow back roads into a desolate labyrinth of frostbitten silence. Sarah and Tom, a young couple on their way to Tom's family dinner, navigated the winding roads with care. The darkness seemed heavier that night, pressing in on the car as though the world beyond their headlights no longer existed. Then they saw him. A lone figure trudged along the side of the road, his hunched frame barely visible against the icy backdrop. He carried a bag slung over one shoulder, the faded fabric stained with dark splotches that could have been mud or something else. Tom hesitated, but Sarah's heart softened. It was Thanksgiving, after all. "We can't leave him out here in the cold," she said. The man climbed into the back seat without a word. His face was hollow, his skin pale as the frost gathering on the windows. The only sound was the soft rustle of his duffel bag, which he clutched tightly to his chest. Sarah and Tom exchanged uneasy glances, but neither said anything. They stopped at a small gas station to refuel. Tom stepped out to pump the gas, leaving Sarah alone with the stranger. She tried to make conversation, asking him where he was headed, but he simply stared ahead, unblinking. When Tom returned, the back seat was empty. The man was gone, but his bag remained. Curiosity warred with dread as they opened it. Inside were butcher's knives gleaming unnaturally in the dim light, an apron stiff with what looked like dried blood, and worst of all, a Polaroid photograph, a young couple bound and gagged, their eyes wide with terror. Panic set in. Tom checked the trunk of the car, half expecting to find something worse, but it was empty. They sped away, hearts pounding, until they reached the safety of Tom's family home. That night, Sarah woke to a sound, a faint tapping at the bedroom window. She froze, her breath catching in her throat. Tom stirred beside her, mumbling in his sleep. Gathering her courage, she crept to the window and pulled back the curtain. There was nothing there. The next morning, however, they found footprints circling the house in the fresh snow. The duffel bag which they had left in the car was gone, and so was the Polaroid. The open road has its dangers, dreamers, but sometimes the real risk isn't where you're going, it's who you let join you. A simple act of kindness can have consequences far darker than we imagine. Let's move to our next tale, one that reminds us some empty chairs aren't as empty as they seem. The Empty Chair. The Morgans had always celebrated Thanksgiving with a peculiar tradition. An empty chair was placed at the table, set with a full plate to honor the family's departed loved ones. That year, 2001, the dinner was no different. The family gathered around the table, laughing and reminiscing, their chatter blending with the warm crackle of the fireplace. It was Lily, the youngest of the group, who broke the jovial mood. As she picked at her mashed potatoes, her eyes drifted to the empty chair. "Who's sitting there now?" she asked, her voice soft but clear. The room fell silent. All eyes turned to the chair, which sat perfectly still, untouched. Someone chuckled nervously, brushing it off as a child's imagination. The laughter resumed, though it felt more forced now. That night, as the family settled into their beds, the house grew eerily quiet. Then the disturbances began. Plates clattered to the floor without cause. The television flickered on and off, cycling through static and faint whispers. Lily's room was the worst. She was found sitting up in bed, speaking softly to someone no one else could see. "Grandpa says he's mad," she told her mother. "You didn't save him any pie." Grandpa had been gone for 5 years. The next morning, the family gathered around the table once more. The empty chair stood where it always did, the plate in front of it still untouched, except for one thing. A note written in a shaky, familiar hand. "Save me a slice next year." Do you ever feel like you're being watched even when the room seems empty? Traditions have a way of connecting us to the past, but sometimes those connections refuse to let go. Let's not linger here too long. Our final story takes us to a place where silence can scream louder than words. Follow me to the forgotten basement. The old McAllister farmhouse stood at the edge of a sprawling forest in rural North Carolina, its sagging roof and peeling paint a testament to years of neglect. It had been in the family for generations, passed down like a curse. That Thanksgiving in 1994, the McAllisters decided to host their family dinner there for the first time in decades. As the meal wound down, curiosity took hold. A group of cousins ventured into the basement, a damp and shadowy space that had always been locked. The adults, emboldened by wine, decided to join them. With a rusty crowbar and a bit of effort, they pried the door open. The air inside was thick and stale, clinging to their lungs like a warning. What lay beyond froze them in place. A table sat in the center of the room, set for a feast that had never been touched. The plates were crusted with mold, the silverware tarnished black. A massive turkey platter dominated the center of the table, but instead of a bird, it held a scattering of human teeth. The walls told a darker story. Deep gouges ran from floor to ceiling, as though someone or something had tried to claw its way out. Faint stains, brown and rusty, trailed along the floor to the far corner, where a pile of decayed fabric hinted at something once alive. The family fled the basement, slamming the door shut and vowing never to speak of it again. Years later, local records revealed a chilling detail. The house's previous owner had vanished without a trace on Thanksgiving in 1958. When the property was first inspected, the basement was sealed shut, just as they had found it. The scratches on the walls, they said, were made from the inside. And there you have it, dreamers, 3 unsettling tales to keep you company this Thanksgiving. As you sit at the table tomorrow, surrounded by laughter, steaming plates, and familiar faces, take a moment to let your mind wander. Think of the hitchhiker walking that lonely road, the empty chair that might not truly be empty, or the basement door that should have stayed locked. Thanksgiving's a time for tradition, after all, and some traditions are better left forgotten. Remember, the stories I share may be rooted in whispers of truth or born of fear, but either way, they serve as a reminder the world is far darker than it seems, even on the brightest of holidays. If you enjoyed tonight's tales, be sure to join us again. Subscribe to the channel, leave a comment below, and let me know which story haunted you the most, or perhaps you have a legend of your own, a family secret, or a chilling encounter you've been too afraid to share. I'd love to hear it. Until next time, dreamers, rest easy if you can, and when you close your eyes tonight, remember, even the most cherished traditions have their shadows. Sweet dreams. Mr. Sandman will see you again.